This is the second video covering material from section 3.1.1.3 in AQA A-Level Chemistry. If you haven't already watched the video about electron arrangement, you need to watch that one first before you can watch this one. Before we can talk about ionisation energy, it's really important that you're very confident with how to work out the electron arrangement or electron configuration of a particular element. So just quickly pause the video and write down what the electron arrangement of each one of these elements is. Hopefully you've remembered that hydrogen should be 1s1, helium will be 1s2, lithium will be 1s2, 2s1, oxygen will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p4 to make 8 electrons in total, sodium will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1 to make 11 electrons in total, and sulfur is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4 making 16 electrons in total. To describe ionisation energies, you need to know what ionisation is. So hopefully you know from GCSE chemistry that ionisation is the creation of charged particles when atoms either gain or lose electrons. And we know that electrons are negative. So if an atom, like this sodium atom here, loses an electron, it will create an ion with a positive charge. And likewise, if a non-metal atom gains some electrons, then that will create a negatively charged ion. Now, although both of those options are available, actually when we're talking about ionisation energies, we're only talking about the formation of positive ions or cations. So here's our definition. The first ionisation energy of a particular element is the amount of energy that's required to take one electron away from every atom in a mole of gaseous atoms to make 1 mole of gaseous ions that all have a single positive charge. There are two things to be aware of here. One is that it's always a gas. It doesn't matter what the element is. So, for example, here we're using bromine, and you know that at room temperature bromine is a liquid, but it doesn't matter. The definition is always based on that element being a gas. And so if you get a question that asks you to write one of these equations, it's really important that you put the state symbols in to show that you know it's a gas. The other thing is, we're not interested in what type of ion this element would typically make when it carries out a chemical reaction. So here, bromine, if it did a chemical reaction, we would expect it to make bromide ions, which have a single negative charge. But we're not doing a chemical reaction, we're physically ripping electrons off this atom. So regardless, it's always going to involve the loss of electrons, and for a first ionisation energy, it's always going to involve the loss of 1 electron. This is a really common 1-mark question, and although it looks a little bit strange because it's saying something about representing a process, all it means is write me an equation for the first ionisation energy. So for this first one, taking potassium, it's quite straightforward because potassium always makes ions with a single positive charge. But remember, you have to include your state symbols, it has to be a gas on both sides of the equation. Then we move on to magnesium, and we might start thinking, well, magnesium makes 2+ ions, but remember, first ionisation energy is all about removing 1 single electron. So regardless of what magnesium would do in a chemical reaction, here we're removing 1 electron to make an ion with a single positive charge. Likewise, aluminium, it doesn't matter that it's in group 3, we're only talking about the first ionisation energy, so we're only losing 1 electron. And finally, oxygen, even though we know that in a chemical reaction it would gain electrons, ionisation energy is defined as the loss of electrons. So here again, oxygen is losing electrons to make ions with a single positive charge. There aren't just first ionisation energies though. There's second and third, and as many ionisation energies as you have electrons in an atom. But the crucial thing is that each ionisation energy is only describing the removal of 1 electron per atom. So if you look at this first example, the second ionisation energy of magnesium is not about the amount of energy it takes to remove 2 electrons, it's about the amount of energy it takes to remove the second one. The first one has already gone. So here we've got a mole of magnesium ions with a single positive charge, and then we're removing from each one of those ions 1 further electron so that we have a mole of magnesium ions with a 2+ charge. And then likewise you can see here below we've got the third ionisation energy of oxygen. And so we've got O2+ ions, and we're removing from each one of those 1 further electron, so that we get O3+ ions. And you can see that for both of these, again, we've got these gaseous state symbols, because it's really important that this is always referring to happening in a gas. So here are a couple more typical exam questions, only this time we're interested in a higher ionisation energy, so second or third or fourth, rather than just the first one. Pause the video and see how you get on. So for this first one, if we're measuring the third ionisation energy for sodium, we need to start with the 2+ ion. So we're going to have sodium 2+, and of course it has to be a gas, reacting to form sodium 3+ and an electron. Then the second ionisation energy of calcium, we're going to start with a calcium single positive charge ion. And then for the fourth ionisation energy of vanadium, we're going to go from the 3+ ion to the 4+ ion. And again, these are all gases. For any element that you're interested in, you can look up in a data table what the first ionisation energy is, and the second and the third and the fourth. And all the way through those ionisation energies, the numbers are going to get bigger. And the reason for this is that as you're removing those electrons, firstly, you're going to remove one from a neutral atom, but then you're going to be removing electrons from a positive ion, and then you're going to be removing electrons from a double positively charged ion. So gradually this ion is getting more and more positively charged, and it's going to take more and more energy to remove those electrons. So those ionisation energies are always going to be going up. However, they're not always going to increase by the same amount. And the size of that jump is going to tell us something about shells. Here's a little graph I made about the ionisation energies of aluminium. You can see that the first one is very low, the second one slightly higher, the third one is slightly higher, and then there's a big jump from the third ionisation energy to the fourth. Then the gap between fourth and fifth is back to being quite small. So that jump from third to fourth ionisation energy is disproportionately large. Now, if you just think practically for a second, you know that aluminium is in group 3, and it has 3 electrons in its outer shell. The final one is in the 3p subshell, and then the 2 that come before it are in the 3s subshell. Once you've taken out those 3 electrons, which are in the third shell, in order to remove a fourth electron, you're then having to remove electrons from the second shell, which is closer to the nucleus and lower in energy, and therefore the electrons in that closer second shell are experiencing more attraction to the nucleus, so it's harder to remove them and it takes more energy. And this is why the fourth ionisation energy of aluminium is so much higher. So quite often you'll have exam questions that will give you data like this, and they'll ask you to either identify which set of data belongs to a particular element, or to identify what an element is. And what you're always looking for is this big jump, and the big jump tells you where you started a new shell. So if I was answering this question, I would explain that the fourth electron being removed from aluminium is being removed from the 2p subshell, and that 2p subshell is closer to the nucleus than the third electron, which was removed from the 3s subshell. In this exam question, we're asked to do a little bit of problem solving and figuring out. So we have 3 different sets of data, and we're trying to identify which element is strontium. You know that strontium is in group 2 of the periodic table, and that means that you'll be able to remove 2 electrons comparatively easily from the 5th shell, but to take a third one out is going to take a lot more energy, because that third electron will be removed from the 4th shell instead of the 5th shell. So we're looking for a set of data that shows us a big jump between the second ionisation energy and the third. You can see here, if we compare A, B and C, there's a much bigger jump for B between the second and third ionisation energies than there is for A or C. So that tells us that this element must be in group 2. So this one must be strontium. Here's a question testing the same kind of knowledge but with a slightly different approach. So here we're told that this particular element is in period 2 and we have to identify what it is. We're not given options to pick from, so what I'm immediately looking for is, are there 2 ionisations next to each other where there's suddenly a big jump? So as I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all sort of going up by about the same amount. But when I get to 6 to 7, I can see that there's a sudden dramatic increase. So what this tells me is that, energetically speaking, removing the first 6 electrons was quite straightforward, but removing the 7th was much more challenging. And that's because it's being taken out of a new shell that's much closer to the nucleus and lower in energy, and therefore the electrons are experiencing more attraction. So this tells me that my electron must be in group 6, and therefore, if it's in period 2, it must be oxygen. Finally, here's a prose question that tests the same idea. we need to explain why it is that it takes less energy to remove a second electron from magnesium than it does to remove a second electron from sodium. So if you think about where these are in the periodic table, magnesium is in group 2 and sodium is in group 1. So they both lose their first electron from the 3s subshell. But when sodium loses its second electron, it doesn't have any left in the 3s subshell. So that second electron has to come out of the 2p subshell, and that is lower in energy and closer to the nucleus. Whereas for magnesium, both of those electrons are coming out of the 3s subshell. So because that second electron being removed is further away from the nucleus, it's higher energy, it's experiencing less attraction, and therefore it's easier to remove it. Also, once you've removed one electron and you're ready to remove the second electron, magnesium still has 3 shells, whereas sodium now only has 2 shells. So that valence electron in magnesium is experiencing more shielding. Those inner 2 shells of electrons are sort of protecting the outer shell electron from the attraction from the nucleus, and therefore it's easier to overcome that attraction and remove that second electron. You also need to be able to describe and explain how the first ionisation energies change as you go across a period or down a group. We'll start with periods. Here we've got period 3 from sodium to argon. So as you go from sodium to argon, generally speaking, the overall trend is that the first ionisation energy increases. It gets steadily harder and harder to remove an electron from each of those atoms. Now the main reason for this is that the nuclear charge is increasing. So sodium has 11 protons, magnesium has 12, aluminium has 13, and each one of those protons is exerting a positive charge. And that gives it an electrostatic force of attraction between those protons and the electrons. Now you might think, well, the number of electrons is increasing as well, and it is, but what you have to remember is that those electrons aren't collectively experiencing this force of attraction, they're individually experiencing it. So that one electron that's in the outer shell is feeling 11 protons worth of pull, or 12, and it doesn't really matter if there are electrons in that shell with it, it's still feeling that pull. So as we go across the period from left to right, we're going to see a general increase in first ionisation energy because of the increased nuclear charge. Here you're asked to describe and explain the trend in first ionisation energy across period 3. So the first thing we need to do is describe it and say that it generally increases from left to right. Then we need to explain that this is because as we go from left to right, the elements have a greater nuclear charge because they have more protons. And that's important because it means there's a stronger attraction between the nucleus and the outer shell electrons. So that's 3 of the 4 marks. The 4th one's going to come up in a minute once we've actually talked about it. So as we go across the period, the most important thing is the increase in nuclear charge. But as we go down a group, there are actually 2 other things that are more important. And the latter of these is the 4th part of that exam question we just looked at. So firstly, as you go down a group, the atoms are getting bigger. You know, if you could take out a ruler and measure them, they're literally getting wider. And so that means that the electrons are actually further away from the nucleus. And so therefore, they're experiencing slightly less nuclear attraction because they're just further away. The other thing is that the reason they're getting further away is not just that the shells are expanding, it's that with each new period, the atom is gaining another shell. So your outer shell electrons are feeling less of the attraction from that nucleus because the inner shell electrons are sort of standing in the way, and we call that phenomenon shielding. So if we go back to this exam question, if we're looking at elements that are all in the same period, they all have the same number of shells, so they're not experiencing any new shielding. And we need to mention this in the question just to say this is not being taken into account. Here's another example of a little 1-mark question that could be used to assess this knowledge. So here we're asked why it is that the first ionisation energy of strontium is lower than magnesium. And the first thing we need to clock is that these are all group 2 elements. So they're all in the same group. We're thinking about going down a group, not across a period. And as I said, it's only a 1-mark question, but there are a number of different ways you could get that mark. So we could just say that strontium is a bigger atom. Because it's a bigger atom, we could describe that the electrons are further from the nucleus, or the electrons are being lost from a higher energy level. We could talk about the fact that strontium has more shielding because it has more inner shells. And you could say that that's going to lead to the fact that the nucleus is providing less attraction to the outer shell electrons. Or you could just say it has more shells. Here, rather than just explaining data, you're being asked to state the trend and then explain it. So the trend is that as you go down the group, the first ionisation energy gets smaller. As you go down the group, it gets easier to remove an electron. And the reason for this is because the atoms have got bigger, because they've got more shells, and therefore your outer shell electrons, which are being lost when you measure the first ionisation energy, are experiencing weaker attraction to the nucleus. So we've talked about periods and we've talked about groups, but actually that's not the whole story. We've said already that the general trend as you move across a period from left to right is for the first ionisation energy to increase. But actually, if you look at the first ionisation energies of period 3, you'll see that when we get to aluminium and when we get to sulphur, there's a sudden drop. It suddenly gets easier for some reason to take that first electron out. These are actually two separate scenarios with different explanations. For aluminium, it's all about where that outer shell electron is coming from. So we said when we look at group 1 or group 2 that it was easier to remove an electron from the larger atoms because the electron was geographically further away from the nucleus and therefore it was experiencing less attraction. Now that's also true when we're looking at aluminium. It hasn't started a new shell, but its outer shell electron is in the 3p orbital rather than the 3s orbital where magnesium had its outer shell electron. And that 3p orbital is ever so slightly higher in energy. It's further away from the nucleus and therefore that electron is experiencing less attraction and it's easier to remove. Now sulphur is a different situation. It's not about starting a new subshell. The difference for sulphur is that we finally started pairing those electrons in the orbitals. So if you remember, when we talked about orbitals, we said that when we got to the 2p or the 3p subshell, you would put one electron in each of the 3 orbitals. And then when you got to the 4th p block element, you would go back and start pairing those electrons. And that's exactly what happens with sulphur. The thing is, those paired electrons are repelling each other because they're both negative. And therefore, it's easier to remove an electron that's been paired than an electron that hasn't, because there's another electron almost kind of trying to force it out of that space. So a typical question might ask you to consider period 3 and give one example of an element that moves away from that general trend of increasing as you go across the period, and then explain why that happens. So in this situation, there are 2 answers on the mark scheme and they're both equally valid. Either you could say that sulphur has outer electrons in the 3p orbital that have begun to pair, and therefore the electrons are repelling each other, or you could mention aluminium and say that its outer electron is now in a 3p orbital, which is higher in energy than 3s. Ionisation energies are pretty important because they provide us with evidence for the fact that shells and subshells do actually exist. In terms of shells, we've looked at the fact that you have dramatically larger ionisation energy every time that you remove an electron from a full shell. And the reason for that is that when you get to that particular ionisation energy, you're trying to remove an electron that is that much closer to the nucleus. And also it's experiencing less shielding because there's one fewer shell in the way between it and the nucleus. And also the fact that we have decreasing first ionisation energies as we go down a group tells us that each time you add a shell, it becomes comparatively less energetically difficult to remove an electron because of the shielding. And then in terms of subshells, it's that thing we saw with aluminium where you have a smaller first ionisation energy for elements that have their outermost electron in a new subshell, because that means that we're removing an electron from a subshell that's further away from the nucleus, and that takes less energy. So in this video, we've defined first ionisation energies, we've written equations for the first and also successive ionisation energies, we've mentioned how important it is that you have to remember that you have gaseous state symbols in those equations, and also that you're only ever removing one electron at a time. And we looked at how those ionisation energies vary across a period and down a group, and how that provides evidence for the existence of shells and subshells. I hope this was useful. Don't forget to subscribe.